So guys, what's going on? So it's my video, and today we are back, and welcome to another edition, to this week's edition of ARK Survival Evolved News, where we'll be going over the third ARK Weekly Digest, and also a plethora of dossiers that have been coming out. I'm talking a huge amount, so a huge amount in the dossier done today, and also, as always, answering a few of your guys' questions at the end. So let's go ahead, let's jump right into it. So to kick things off, they're pretty much saying that they've been doing a lot of work last week to mainly prepare for the alpha and early access, and doing their best to make it bug-free. From Monday, I believe it was this Monday, until launch, they're actually going to be releasing 2 dossiers per day, so the dossier den's going to be chock full. I'll talk about that a little bit more later on, and they also do show off some of those dossiers they've released so far, but again, we're going to talk about that at the dossier den. So one of the questions they begin talking about and answering is pretty much how the early game is going to go, and in general, I'm not going to go over all of it because it's relatively run-of-the-mill when it comes to survival games, but you start with your hands, you got to hit some trees and whatnot for resources, you got to make some tools, etc, etc, and they do make mention of something called engram points, which are, I'm guessing, skill points for when you level up. I'm actually going to talk about that a little bit later in the digest, and the rest of this section is pretty much just summarizing how the early game will go. They did emphasize that there's going to be a living ecosystem, something that people have been speculating on for quite a while, and they are emphasizing that they want dinosaurs to interact with each other, they want them to attack each other, etc. And it's even going to be possible to find carcasses and even unconscious dinosaurs through the carnage of the field and what they've done to each other. And if you do find an unconscious dinosaur, as long as it's been knocked out by another wild dinosaur, you can actually tame it. But the thing is, if like another player knocks it out, I think the player has like exclusivity to taming it or something like that. That's kind of the idea I'm getting from this. They also said that there is going to be complete mod support at launch, and they're even going to be releasing the source code, so expect some pretty damn sexy mods if that's the case. Like, holy crap, I'm excited to see where that goes. Let's talk a little bit how land dinosaurs will be working in the water, and they pretty much say that land dinosaurs are capable of swimming, but again, they're not going to be super effective because they are land-based, and because they do have a stamina bar, they can, even if their stamina goes down while in the water, and if it's completely depleted, your dinosaur is even at risk of drowning. Specifically, he talks about the brontosaur in this section, and then he also answers the second part of the question, asking how brontosaurs, wild brontosaurs, will do in the wild. And if they come across one of your structures, they don't really care that your structure's there. They are, if it's in the way, they will probably step over it and wreck all of your hard work. So they are capable of breaking down structures, even wild ones. Watch out. And the most sizable part of this digest is the, well, they're talking about the skill tree, which is something that hasn't really been talked about at all so far, but hot damn, it's being talked about, so we're gonna go ahead and talk about it some more. For the most part, the skill tree is pretty self-explanatory, but how it works is every time you level up, you get stat points and engram points, so you actually get 1 stat point per level, and then the engram points scale with the level, so I'm not sure if like engram points are less common as you level up higher, or if they become more common due to increasing demands or something like that. But yeah, you do get 1 stat point per level, and there are a plethora of stat categories that you can put themselves into. For the most part, they're self-explanatory, but if it's a bit less, bit vague, that's when I'll go ahead and explain it. So let's go ahead and start listing things off. You have stamina, which is pretty much your action, swinging stuff, running, all that stuff. You have oxygen, so when you go underwater, so you can breathe longer. Food, so you have to eat less often. Water, so you are not as thirsty, or so you get less thirsty, either or. I don't know, I'm just trying to word it weirdly, I guess. And something that is kind of going to be a little bit unique to the game in the sense is weight, which is pretty central to it, and pretty much as you level up your weight, you're going to be able to hold more weight. So I guess that's kind of self-explanatory. There's also melee damage, which can be leveled up, movement speed, how fast you move, and fortitude, which is pretty much resistance from weather, and even torpor, I'm not sure I actually pronounced that, but we're going to talk about that in a sec here. There's also crafting speed, and then finally this torpor thing I just mentioned, which isn't actually a stat you can increase, but you can put points into fortitude, which should help. But torpor, it can't be increased, but it is important to monitor because depending on it's like how high or how low it is, that's going to determine how easy it is to knock you out as a person, and also how long you might stay knocked out for. And if you notice that the levels are getting a little not really where you want them to be, it is suggested that you eat or use like a stimulant or something. And that's about it for torpor. This thing does also apply to dinosaurs, and I think dinosaurs also have this torpor stat to each of them, and that's how you actually render them unconscious and end up taming them. So pretty interesting that this doesn't apply just to dinosaurs, it's also a human thing, so gonna be fun knocking some people out. And that about does it for the skill tree. Now then, the tech tree slash engram points. So kind of the way to think of this is a pseudo tech tree that pretty much determines your character's knowledge. So you use the engram program points and you put them into this tech tree, and that determines, you know, what things you know how to craft. So you can learn how to craft new tools, new weapons, new buildings, and if you look at the screen right now, you'd see there's a whole bunch of stuff that you are capable of crafting. And that about does it for the tech tree. I was expecting a bit more, but really it was just a paragraph going over it, so I guess we'll have to see when it launches Tuesday. And other than that, they do pretty much finish off by saying that the alpha is ongoing, it's going well, and the alpha's ongoing, it's going well, and that it is likely that they are going to be accepting a couple more people into the alpha before it launches. That's the gist of what I got, and fingers crossed, they might be me or one of you guys. If it's one of you guys, I'm gonna be very happy because this game's awesome and I need to play it right now. So I'm gonna be jealous. I'm jelly. Yeah. And so that brings us to this week's edition of the Dossier Den. Now this week I got something very special for you guys, and that's gonna show up on screen right now. That's right, I went ahead, contacted my artist, very good artist. She does most of my artwork. Her name is Paperwick on Twitter, and she went ahead and designed this little artwork slash logo for the Dossier Den, and she's just gonna hinting towards a little something. It might be more than just a logo in the future, so keep your eyes out, and who knows, we'll see where it goes. But I really like it, and hopefully you guys do like the artwork as well. I absolutely love the way it turned out, and yeah. But that is enough talking about the artwork. Let's go ahead and dive into the Dossier Den. And actually how this is going to work is that recently they announced they're going to be dropping 2 dossiers per day, so I'm not sure if that does include weekends and whatnot, but probably what's going to happen is the Wednesday, the usual show slash video that you guys are used to, is going to have all the dossiers from the first half of the week. And then I'm planning on doing a specific Dossier Den video every Saturday if they do continue to do the 2 dossiers per day. And that way I can cover both without making one extremely long, and hopefully that'll also space out the content a little bit. So dedicated Dossier Den coming on Saturday, and we'll be covering the second half of the dossiers released per week, implying that they do continue on this 2 dossier per day. Now enough talk about other stuff, let's jump into the dossiers for this past week. So we're going to be starting with the dossier that was released last Friday, because I wasn't actually able to cover that, and that would be the Scorpion. So the Scorpion is a carnivore and of aggressive temperament, and for the most part the only notable thing about it, besides the fact it's a giant scorpion, is that it has this tranquilizing poison that it uses, and it's actually going to be pretty useful when tamed, because that's going to be good for knocking out other dinosaurs and creatures. And a little side note, if this is true, that's kind of slightly disturbing, but apparently once knocked out it'll eat its unconscious prey alive, which is, I don't know if they'll actually incorporate that in the game, but if so, that's going to be disturbing, weird, but yet cool that they implemented that. And other than that, you know, it's decently sized. They did mention it's larger than human, and taming wise it's going to be good for knocking out other dinos and creatures and subsequently taming them. Now then, the next dossier was the first dossier dropped on Monday, and that is for the Phiomia, which was actually, we saw in last week's screenshots, it's pretty much like this elephant pig tusk thing that I mentioned, and it's quite interesting. So there's actually herbivore and skittish. It tends to travel as a herd animal, and it's interesting enough, it is small enough for most predators to take down, but it also provides plenty of meat. So when you're hunting, these are going to be pretty good animals to hunt, since they do provide a good chunk of meat, and they do come in herds. So if you can take out a whole herd, boom, got meat for a couple days there. And kind of a fact about it is that it uses its tusks to dig up plant life, and that's how it eats. And this had me thinking, maybe once tamed, they don't specifically mention it, but maybe once tamed, they'll kind of be used like a farming tool. Maybe you could use like a hoe to, you know, hoe your ground better. I don't know, but just interesting idea, yo. So devs, you know, if you're watching this video, just wink wink, nudge nudge. And the confirmed stuff for once it is tamed is that it can be ridden, but it's not really a good choice to be ridden. Like, it's, you could honestly do better, but it does serve as a good pack mule, as one of those types of animals, and it can even be kept as livestock, so you could keep some of it kind of encased in a fence area, and you could just have it as, you know, meat whenever you need it. So pretty versatile, yet it still sucks and can't defend itself and can't really fight. So pros and cons, I guess. All right, next up, I believe the second drop of Monday was the Carnotaurus. So this thing is pretty interesting. It is actually carnivore and of aggressive temperament, and the thing about it is it's a predator, but it's not a medium-sized predator, nor is it a large. It's kind of a tweener in that sense. It's in between there, and it's also kind of interesting because it has decent speed, and it will actually run from larger predators because it has the ability to, and it doesn't really want to die, and it has decent speed. It does have horns on it, which the feeling I'm getting is that it can be a useful weapon for it, for the actual dino, but it doesn't seem like he uses it a whole ton. And this comparison is pretty interesting. I think it's a very good idea of it. So if the T-Rex is the lion of this island, then the Carnotaurus is the cheetah. So if this thing spots you, you're probably screwed. It's going to be pretty hard to outrun it. Once tamed, it serves as being larger but almost as fast as the raptor, yet it's smaller but much faster than the T-Rex. So that's kind of where that tweener term comes, where it's like kind of a hybrid between a raptor and a T-Rex, but the downside that takes away from it, otherwise it'd be an amazing mount, is that it has extremely long downtime after sprinting, which really does limit its effectiveness. Alright then, the first drop of Tuesday was for the crocodile. So this thing is a carnivore, and its temperament is something we haven't really seen yet. This is the first one out of the dossiers, I think, but it's patience. It's actually water-based, but it can also go and actually hunt on land, and actually it usually waits in the water, and it lies in wait. But if it's hungry, it will happily go on land to chase after some of its prey. It is faster in water than land, which is kind of to be expected of a crocodile, and once tamed, it can be mounted to actually traverse the ocean, so it isn't limited to rivers and swamp. This thing can sail the open seas. It's noted that it's good to use a few to help fight off megalodons if they're like attacking your village, or if you have like a sea-based village and, you know, those sharks coming in, you can get a couple crocodiles and try to fend them off. And they're also useful because they help you get better access to those resources found within the reef that the megalodons I mentioned in the first digest can actually do. Other than that though, I think it's going to serve as an interesting kind of beginner version of the water mount, and you know, it could serve to be a pretty useful part of your aquatic fleet when it comes to dinosaurs. So I do want to see how that goes, and maybe it'll be a formidable ship I add to my navy. And the second drop of Tuesday was the raptor. So the raptor is a carnivore and aggressive. It tends to travel in small packs, and mainly it attacks smaller prey. The weapons it uses are its sharp teeth and enlarged foreclaws, and it is actually capable of attacking while jumping. So this thing can lunge towards you, and it can like swipe it. That's lethal. That really is. The gist of it is that it's one of the fastest dinosaurs on the island, and once tamed, it can be mounted. Thank God, that will make you a speed demon, and it serves as a pretty good scout. So if you want to set out a scout unit, you know, check out a base you might want to raid, you can just go in, get his information, get the hell out before anyone knows. Or even it could be good for raiders if you want to do a quick hit and run tactic. Bang bang, use a herd of raptors, and you can get in, get what you need, get out, won't even know what hit them. However, once tamed, they do need a steady stream of meat to survive, so it does seem like you're gonna be needing to feed them pretty well. But besides that, taming them can also be kind of difficult. That's the gist I'm getting. Other than that, that's about it for the raptor. And I'm not gonna be covering the Wednesday drops today. I'm actually recording these dossiers Tuesday late at night, so in preparation for Wednesday, which is today, I'm going to be covering the Wednesday dossiers in Saturday's episode, so that'll hopefully make that one a little bit longer. And because this is already 5 dossiers, and the dossier demo, which I was expecting to be like a couple dossiers at most, so you guys are going to be getting, if my math is correct, 6 to 8 dossiers in Saturday's video. So be sure to check that out, Dedicated Dossier Den, and I hope to see you there. Now let's go ahead and move on to some of the featured questions / comments from last week's video. So thank you to all 3 of you who left a comment. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. 3 should be on screen. Thank you to all 3 of you, and unfortunately, I was not able to get these questions answered in time. Jet, the community guy at Wildcard Studios, he was not able to answer them for me in time. He was, actually, our timing was really off. He was offline and I was online. He was on when I was off, etc., etc. So, to compensate for that, I will try and have these questions answered and or talk with him a little about them in Saturday's Dossier Den. I'll probably put that at the end of that video, so do keep an eye out for that. And again, my sincerest of apologies for not being able to get that done for you guys, but that does not mean that we can't talk about them. So let's go ahead and jump on into the first one left by Thomas Reichpeist. I probably butchered your name, but my apologies. And pretty much what Thomas here is doing is he's raising a very valid question in regards to ARK and how the balance might work between dinosaurs and guns later down the line. And I think this is actually a very valid point to be raised, because with the way that guns go, eventually you'd assume that guns would be the strongest thing in the game, because you can attack from a very far range. They're only going to get more and more powerful as you get more technologically advanced. So this is a fantastic question that he's posing to the ARK devs in regards to how they're going to be able to balance it so it just doesn't become like an FPS deathmatch, but instead it does stay true to this like dinosaur survival action, all of this stuff. And even then, he does ask a pretty good question, asking if there's going to be servers with no guns, so that would make it kind of a bit more primitive and he'd have to stick to the dinosaurs. And those are actually some fantastic questions that I'm hoping to have answered. But I think that is actually a very important thing, is that they do have to balance the guns and the dinosaurs right, so it's not just like eventually dinosaurs are almost useless and guns are on top of the food chain when it comes to killing. So very good question, hoping to have that answered by Saturday for you. Again, my apologies, I was not able to do that today. Next up, we have a comment from Montana Kufner. Apparently everyone's name is extremely hard to pronounce this week, and he's talking about in regards to weather, if there's going to be kind of more global events that are a lot more larger in scale. So not just like, you know, a storm might be moving in, but we're talking like hurricanes, we're talking like possibly even tornado stuff like that. And even if you might be able to see like different not weather patterns, but different ambient visuals. So like you can kind of see maybe an eclipse one day, maybe you'll see a meteor shower up above. And I think there's just some awesome suggestions and or things to be asking about, which I really like. And along with that, he does ask pretty much if dinosaurs will have variants. So if every alligator will be the same, if they'll be carbon copies of each other, if one alligator might be like slightly bigger, if you might be a little bit faster, or to have those slight variances, or is it just straight up all dinosaurs will be carbon copies of each other? And that's actually a good question I have not seen answered yet, so I do want to get that answered for you, and thank you so much for leaving the comment, Montana. Hopefully I can have that answered for you Saturday. And the third comment comes from a name that is relatively easier to pronounce, thank God. James Mitchell, I think I pronounced that right, and he's pretty much just commenting on if they're going to possibly add the, excuse my English, yeah, those two dinosaurs up there, because apparently these are like huge king of the sky dinosaurs. And if you guys want to see what they're like, boom, this is the dinosaur that starts with a Q, and boom, this is the one that starts with an H. Again, not gonna try to pronounce those. That is a mess of a word that I'm just gonna get yelled at if I try. So I think this is a good question to be asking if these might be in the future, because so far we only really have knowledge about the pterodactyl, or what's commonly known as a pterodactyl, in the skies. And I mean, some of these huge birds in the sky, or some of these huge dinos, whichever way you want to go about calling them, could get very interesting. And it's definitely some information that I would like to ask the dev about. So we will see about that again Saturday. I'll try and have that answered for you, James. And yeah, so that does it for this week's community questions and answers, albeit the answers from the dev will be coming on Saturday in that Dossier Den / second half of the week update. But for now, I just want to thank everyone who left their comments and whatnot, and I want to ask you guys to continue leaving these. It serves as an awesome way to interact with you guys, interact with the developers, and possibly even let you guys shape the future of the devs, because they might see one of your ideas I asked them, and they might be like, damn, that's a really good idea. We'll definitely think about that. And I just think that's an awesome feeling that I'm trying to let you guys influence the game, and also it's an awesome way of me interacting with you guys, us having a discussion, and you guys even have a discussion down in the comments. So I ask you guys to leave some comments, leave some questions, and etc. It doesn't have to necessarily be a question, but just anything in general. I mean, even if it's like a blank, even if it's a statement, I could ask him about said statement, stuff like that. And I'm asking you guys to please have discussions down in the comments, because this isn't just about talking with the devs, it's about talking with each other. And I mean, if you guys are having a huge discussion over a certain topic, I'm just going to be like, okay, the community, you guys obviously want to see this question answered, and I'm a lot more likely to pick it. So again, like I'm saying, please try to have a discussion, and I can't wait for next week's video. Like I'm saying, please try to have a discussion, and we will see next week what the featured comments are. Probably going to be 3 as usual. But other than that, that is going to do it for me for today. So hope you guys enjoy the video. Next one will be coming out Saturday, and then we should be going back to the weekly Wednesday schedule. But next Tuesday marks the release of ARK, so it might be a bit special. And expect lots of gameplay videos, and yeah, it's going to be amazing. I can't wait. Hopefully you guys can either. But that is going to do it for me for this video. So thank you guys so much for watching the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. As always, if you did, be sure to like and subscribe. Signing out. Love you guys. See ya.